What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring you everything fresh in entertainment. I'm your host, Drew Brumfield, and this week we got a little bit of a shorter crew. It is just me and Randy today. Randy, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
All right. Okay, and today we are talking about She-Hulk, and we're a little bit early because the season finale hasn't come out yet, but because of our scheduling, we wanted to make sure we get this out when we were able to, because it's a bit of a controversial show, and that's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit, because there has been a lot of buzz around it. Is Marvel going down a bad path? Is this, the worst Marvel show to come out? Me personally, I think that is a bit of a harsh statement, but before we get too into it, Randy, just general thoughts. How was your viewing of She-Hulk? Because me and you watched it a little differently. I watched it every week when it came out, and you kind of binged watched it real quick.
Yeah. So I just binge watched it the past 2 days, and I think that might work better in this case. It also wasn't terrible to binge watch. Each episode is right at 30 minutes roughly, but then you have your intro and you have your credits and stuff like that, so it's really maybe like 25 or something like that. And I found it really enjoyable and had a lot of laughs along the way.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like a silly, lighthearted show, and I think that's kind of, for some reason, people just weren't wanting that. They wanted something very, I guess, more serious, more grounded. Even though, like, the more you dig into the character of She-Hulk from the comics, she's not really like that. She isn't, a grounded, very serious character. She is joking, she is funny, and at even some points, and it's noted in the show, fourth wall breaking. Which is kind of like my one thing that, from a lot of these complaints, because a lot of the complaints are, oh, I don't like that Marvel's doing pop culture references, or Megan Thee Stallion come on, or she's twerking, or all this stuff. But a friend of mine pointed this out. If this wasn't She-Hulk, if this was Daredevil, I'm sorry, not Daredevil, Deadpool doing all this stuff, then people would be loving this. This would be all over this show is the funniest thing in the world, blah blah blah. I guarantee it. But it's the fact that it's She-Hulk. And I don't want to, point fingers, but more than likely because it's a female-led show that it gets a lot more hate and a lot more criticizing.
All the neckbeards are saying women aren't funny in media. They're not allowed to be.
Exactly. If you're not a straight white male, what are you doing in entertainment? Just leave.
They're just not funny. It's not my fault. It's just genetics.
Yeah, it's just.
I swear.
I kissed my sister. Anyway, God, that could be taken out of context. So yeah, that's kind of the big thing, and I will say I do have kind of a general complaint about it, which is it does rely a lot on cameos from like other people, because Wong showed up a bunch of times. Abomination was a big selling point, and then on the most recent episode that came out, at least for us, I would say spoilers, but it was in the trailer, Daredevil's back, and so this is a lot of selling points, and it kind of does feel like every episode's like, oh, look at this side character, look at this side character, and there aren't too many times where like it does become a kind of serious, grounded story about her specifically. It is always kind of like, I skipped the obvious one in the first episode. Here's Hulk, regular Bruce Banner. So that is one thing, is it kind of almost has like what started to happen in Mandalorian season 2, where every episode was just the cameo show, and this just kind of took away from the main character. I said Mandalorian season 2. I meant Boba Fett, but you get the idea. Right before we,
I'll disagree with you on that aspect.
Okay.
Personally,
go ahead.
I mean, yes, we start off with Bruce Banner, but I feel like it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it would be weird
it establishes
to not see.
that's
Yeah.
Bruce Banner and her are cousins.
Yeah, it'd be weird not to
And-
see Hulk in the She-Hulk show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're like, oh, like you, of course you have. I'm like, well, of course you have Hulk, and then Wong shows up. I mean, to help with the case on Abomination, but we hadn't seen Abomination in what was it, 2007?
Yeah, it was literally the first Hulk movie, which I will say.
And so I was fine
like
seeing
that-
him in it. I
yeah.
thought his whole arc was interesting. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily like cameo of the week, because cameo of the week would be like people that show up and then they're there for literally one episode. Each character has come back and kind of has at least a part to play in the story, other than just kind of being in the background and going like, "Ooh, look, it's that character."
Yeah, that's fair. Because it seems like, and I don't know how the season finale will be, but it seems like they are gonna make. It seems like they are taking Emil Blonsky Abominations in a different way, and I have enjoyed his character. I thought at first like, oh, this is gonna be silly, this is gonna be dumb, but I really like the scene where him and Jen are just talking to each other, like about the case, and he puts his side of the story of the first Incredible Hulk to him, and yeah, no, he's kind of right. From his point of view, he was just, other than when they started injecting him with all those like serums and stuff, and then he could have just claimed like, oh, that was just madness from the drugs. But it's like, no, from his point of view, he was doing his job. Like, he was a soldier tasked with taking down this like force of nature, i.e. the Hulk. So I was like, okay, I actually do kind of see where there's like a case here, and I did like his character. I also, now that I bring it more up, I do like, I don't think there's been a time where there's a cameo and I regretted it, because I do like seeing Wong. I actually really liked his dynamic with that one, with Madison with a Y, whatever that girl's name.
Madison with a Y, but not where you think it is.
I don't know why she was funny. She was hilarious to me.
It's because we've both gone through college and we both have seen girls at parties
Yes.
that are like that, or at the bars that are like that.
I currently live and work
And you live in Nashville, so you definitely still see girls that are like that out
every
at the
day on
bars.
those like party bus. There's 50 Madisons with Y driving and taking up traffic and screaming some Miley Cyrus song on the top of our roof. And I'm just
Hey,
like,
party in the USA slaps.
and I'm
Anyway,
like, I
continue.
get it. You're not original. Can we move on? I'm sorry. I just called out every single bachelorette party ever. But no, I like that dynamic. I do like that even though Wong gets annoyed by her, he still kind of still becomes friends with her. Like they go.
Yeah,
and,
and they end up they're watching Sopranos
yeah.
together.
That's actually funny. But yeah, I think it gets a bit. I don't know. I think from my point of view, I would have liked a little bit more time just with, Jen and Nat going off to. Even though I like the other characters, I don't know if she feels as developed as I would. I guess, let me just say it this way. She doesn't feel as developed as characters from, other shows. Because I feel like, at least in Falcon Winter Soldier, both those main characters, they felt like, yeah, they are, they're taking the lead and they're growing as characters. She-Hulk kind of feels like, at least so far, and up until the very last episode, she kind of has just been on this straight path and hasn't developed too much. I will say that did change on the most recent episode, where it literally was her going to a therapy session.
Yeah.
Excuse me, not. I just literally rephrase. Not the very recent, because the very recent episode is probably my favorite for an obvious reason, but it's the one before that, the retreat. So that's episode 7.
Yeah, I liked the retreat a lot.
Yeah. Okay, but let's start. I'm jumping all over the place. Let's go by this a little bit in order. The first episode starts and actually shows basically her origin story with her, getting the powers and then her talking to Bruce already. How did you feel about, I guess, just how it opened, like the beginning part of this season.
Um, I'd say I thought it opened fine. It is fun, kind of just being like, yeah, the show's gonna be a lawyer show and stuff, but I guess it's gonna be kind of hard for you guys to get through that unless I tell you all how it was She-Hulk stuff happened. So let's flash back. And so I don't know. I kind of like how she will very deliberately be like, yeah, this is a TV show that's happening and whatnot, and like breaks the fourth. Like I enjoy the fourth wall breaks.
Okay.
Because as of the moment we've pretty much mostly only had that with Deadpool, so which is a very different, I feel, kind of fourth wall break. Or I guess Deadpool's also a very different type of character.
It's
but.
they're both used in the same way of just comedy, but I see what you mean. Where Deadpool when he does it, he'll look at the camera and just be like, "That's dumb," and then like flick us off, or show his butt, or do something. He's a bit more raunchy than She-Hulk is. I think the only time she's ever breaking the fourth wall is just to talk about the plot, or just what's going on. I think my favorite moment, it's really ironic, but my favorite moment when she looked over is just like, I love having Wong on the show, because it's like being like shielded from Twitter for a couple of days, and I remember saying that to my friends and be like, well, that is not accurate, because the show gets flamed on Twitter, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, I enjoyed I think I enjoy a little bit of the fourth wall breaking. So I guess do you think? Let's take a sec. Do you enjoy the character of She-Hulk, of Jen Wald? Do you like seeing a character that's their only goal isn't just saving people? We also see essentially her day job of being a lawyer.
Yeah, I do, because I've never really been someone to watch like lawyer shows or really listen to like I don't know, I guess information about that. But because I'll admit I didn't watch Daredevil, and having like you said, him show up in the show, I'm like, man, I should watch Daredevil, and I really enjoyed that aspect, and I enjoyed getting to see her day job and kind of just see what her normal like struggles are, whether it be just wanting to look nice at a wedding or whatever, and trying to be like, yes, I'm not trying to upstage the bride, but I feel like no one looks at just Jen as Jen, but when she's She-Hulk, everyone's like, oh wow, you're amazing and whatnot, incredible, if you will. So
yeah, I will say I've kind of liked that aspect, that it is a bit more of it's a day-to-day type show. Like, this is not, episodes for the most part are contained with their own episode. A story begins and ends there. There's not too much of an overarching plot, and her problems are a lot more human problems. Like, she's not trying to defeat Ultron or Thanos or just someone who's trying to take over the world. No, she's trying to live her life.
yeah, I was about to say her biggest threat, like initially, was just this like influencer with light superpowers.
Yeah. Can kind of punch hard, yeah. Honestly, I would argue her biggest threat is just like the glass ceiling, the corporate masculinity. Just trying to break through that.
Yes, but in the way of like a traditional like villain, quote unquote, like something she could like physically fight against.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's her. I
think her name's Tina or something. I don't know. But yeah, so I think it's interesting that it's like there honestly isn't too much even fighting in this. I mean, majority of like her quote unquote fights only last a few seconds because, again, she's a Hulk and she's fighting pretty much just regular people. So there's even a scene where she gets bugged, she just kind of smacks him around. Because even if she's not physically as strong as, the traditional Hulk, she's still by far stronger than, like, she hasn't had a challenge so much to say, like, when it comes to a physical fight. So a lot of
I mean, the person she ends up fighting that I'm saying is that, like, influence is, Titania.
Yeah,
and it's
Titania,
just like,
Titania.
She literally, like, wipes her the floor with her.
I think she one-shot her twice in the season.
Yeah,
Just
pretty much.
Straight knocks her out. So yeah, and I think that's maybe the reason it's not sticking with a lot of like mainstream audiences, is because it's not a serious story, and there's not like big action set pieces to like grab onto or gravitate to. So a lot of the show, it hard depends on the comedy and the relatability of this character. So I think for a lot of people, if they don't find the show funny, then obviously if they don't find a comedy show funny, they're not gonna like it. But it's gonna have a harder time keeping people to the next week, because it's like, well, there's not really gonna be a big action piece. I know that, and if you're not really related to Jen, then I can see why you wouldn't stick with it. So the only thing keeping people is, seeing Wong or seeing Daredevil. Which I do like that you did bring up Daredevil, because, as you know, and probably a lot of people know about me, in my opinion, Daredevil, the first 2 seasons and probably the third is some of the best Marvel TV show ever, even compared to the Disney, Plus stick. Even, in my opinion, better than Loki, better than WandaVision, better than all that. And I'm talking about just Daredevil, not the Defenders, not Luke Cage, not... even though Jessica Jones is good, not her. It's Daredevil is really good, super entertaining, and I'm really glad, at nothing else, that I'm really hoping that what you just said keeps happening. That people will watch this show, see that character, and be like, "Oh, I should watch that." Because a lot of people didn't when it first came out, and honestly, the only way to watch it on Disney Plus now is you have to like go into your account and make it so I want to see, or I'm okay with explicit content, and so that's how you're able to watch Daredevil and a couple other shows on Disney Plus that are rated R, like Logan and other things. So I'll try not to ramble too much about Daredevil because I know you haven't seen it, but I really do want to emphasize, if you liked a little bit of this version of Daredevil, he's a bit more joking. He's a bit more like, this might sound weird, happy. Like he's kind of, okay with his life in this point. Versus in the show, it's a little bit of his origin story, a little bit of him trying to keep his secret identity, and just him, like in that show, really there aren't anyone else super powered. It's really just him. And then honestly, he only uses superpowers to see and tell where things are. But I'm super glad they got Charlie Cox back. I'm hoping that, obviously he's been in more than this. He was in Spider-Man. But I'm really glad that he is back and he is still doing Daredevil, because in my opinion, he's the only one that can do this character really well. I love his portrayal of him, his portrayal of like how he still meshes with his faith and his secret identity and being a lawyer, and just kind of how his life is a big spiral. So I'm really hoping they keep this character and do more with him in the future. And the last thing I'll say about this is a reference that a lot of people didn't get is one of the most famous scenes from the original Daredevil show is this hallway fight. And it's where the terms hallway fights comes from, just because it is a full one shot of Charlie Cox's Daredevil fighting probably like 15 or 20, either goons or henchmen, whatever the difference is. And and it's this amazing choreography. It's this great fight scene. It's visceral. It's very entertaining to watch. You know, when you watch Daredevil, you'll know which scene I'm talking about. And there was a cute reference, like, after he took out 3 guys, a bunch more guys came in this hallway, and he's stanced up like he did in the show, like, oh, are we going to get another hallway fight? And then Jin just kind of jumps in and knocks him over, because, like, this show probably doesn't have the budget to to do that big choreography thing.
Yeah, to shoot for that long.
Yeah.
For one fight scene.
It's, those shots are not easy to get, but gosh, they're so cool to watch. So yeah, that was my little tangent about Daredevil. He's one of my, he's become one of my favorite characters because of that Netflix show, and I'm really happy that he's back. I kind of missed the red suit. I don't know how I feel about the yellow yet.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice. Yeah. But I've talked a lot about him, Randy, just from this show, because this is your only introduction to Daredevil, other than like the one scene from Spider-Man. How do you feel about this character? It was what I'm saying makes sense. Do you want to see him more? Or are you kind of still like on the fence about him?
I would like to see him more. I remember watching that episode with him in it and being like, I should probably watch that show.
Yeah.
Just and I was somewhat familiar with the hallway scene, because I remember like having you've brought it up, and I think it's also like been recommended on YouTube, like people reacting to it and stuff like that. So I knew like that's a big thing that show did, and yeah, getting to see this character, I was like, okay, this could be fun. With what you're saying, with him being a little more serious in the other show, I think could be more interesting of a character. Not that his character wasn't interesting in this. I thought he was kind of charming, and I kind of liked after he kind of wins that case against She-Hulk, they pretty much are on opposite ends for a court case.
Yeah.
And they're both in the bar, and like he gets her a drink, they talk a little, and he gets a phone call and has to leave. But his kind of like dorky, kind of like shy reaction to kind of being like, hey, I liked talking to you. It'd be nice to see you again, sort of situation. Like he wants to be like trying to flirt with her and whatnot, but he's just kind of self-conscious about it, I guess. I found that very cute.
Yeah, I will say he does have that, and in the early seasons, it's a bit hard to tell if that charisma is him putting on like a persona, because as when he puts the mask on as Daredevil, almost different person. But he does. That isn't just a She-Hulk thing. He actually does have a little bit of that quirkiness, a little bit of that like fun side to him when he's Matt Murdock talking to like his friends and all. He's actually a really funny individual, which is not something you think of when you think of Daredevil. But I loved like when he came in and was just like, sorry, I had trouble parking. Everyone looks at him like, I'm just messing with you. My driver got lost. I'm like, I don't know. I found that cute, and it's rare in Netflix series. Like I will say, don't expect that going in, that he's going to be joking like and making quips the entire time, because he's not that kind of Marvel character. But every once in a while, when he does like decide to kind of let his guard down and be Matt Murdock, he does have a little bit of that charisma, that quirkiness to him.
Okay.
So beyond Daredevil and beyond She-Hulk, which is I've been on a lot about him, and he's really only in it for one episode, but I do love. Oh, I forgot to ask. So, are you said you weren't a fan of the yellow?
I mean, as She-Hulk stated, it's quite daring to go with ketchup and mustard for your for your costume, but at the same time, he's also blind, so.
Yeah, but someone designed that for him. Like he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't make.
Yeah, the designer for that actually is the same person who designed She-Hulk's clothes, because she does end up getting clothes that can kind of like shrink or like stretch with her, and
it's a bit more
come back to normal Jen.
Yeah.
size and whatnot, and he also designs her kind of a superhero outfit.
Yeah.
And he also does Daredevil's outfit. And I like that character.
That
He's
character.
very, he's fun, sassy. Definitely, it's not explicitly stated, but it definitely is kind of a sassy gay man. And
I don't.
it's just fun.
Yeah. Randy, I don't mean to stereotype, but yeah, I think you, me, and almost everyone else like watching this show and could make that assessment, that judgment.
Connection. Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
also done a lot in like other shows, to where it's just like, oh, the people need to go to, you know, get a new costume or get a
Yeah.
disguise or whatever, and it's just some queer person. Like, it's the person who designs everything and whatnot, which, like, whatever.
Yeah.
They did it again in this, but I enjoy the character. I think he's fun.
He's definitely enjoyable. It's interesting because I keep bringing back Daredevil. I'm sorry, but that's not obviously that character exists for She-Hulk. That's not who normally designs Daredevil's outfits. Who normally does it? It's this criminal who Daredevil chose to not arrest, redeem in exchange for like, you keep making me outfits and you stay out of trouble, and I will, protect you, and then this will be essentially like your penance, I guess is how he would put it. And that's an interesting dynamic, but yeah, clearly it looks like, which is, I don't know, it's interesting, and it brings up kind of the question of how much of this Daredevil will be the Netflix show, and I hope they keep a lot of it. I understand that they have said, like, not everyone from Netflix is coming back, and I understand that does kind of feel almost like a separate thing, but I do hope they keep some of the original characters. I'm fine with them changing little details, like who actually designed his suit or whatever. That's fine, but like his relationship with Kingpin, his relationship with Karen, which is one of the characters, and then I really hope they bring back the actor that played Foggy, which is his. The firm he worked for was Nelson and Murdoch, Foggy Nelson. So it's his like roommate from college and his like best friend. But I'll stop bringing up Daredevil. I keep doing it. I'm sorry. We'll go to another character. So we brought him up a little bit, but I'll let you have a moment to talk about him. How do you feel about Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination? This is the first time we have seen him since the Incredible Hulk, and he's wildly different. He has now essentially like a harem of various aging women.
All mates.
Yes. And he now also has like a retreat for like reformed, I wouldn't say super villains, but minor villains. I guess, so how do you think that character was handled? That he is more silly, more goofy. He's not as serious Stone Cold Soldier as we saw him in Incredible Hulk.
Well, I mean, it's been over a decade, over a decade, and I think it's appropriate for the character to have changed in his time in confinement and stuff like that, because I feel like if he was exactly the same, people, I don't know, I guess it's a double-edged sword, because some people always want the exact same thing and never change anything, and then you also have people who are like, well, it's the exact same as what we saw, a decade ago. There's no improvement or growth. So, but with that being said, I thought it was a nice different take on it. It was showing, because something that is said in the first episode, when Bruce Banner's trying to talk to Jen and say, hey, we gotta control when you change and whatnot, and it was something that Bruce battled with for like 15 years, I think is what he said in the show.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting to see how to see another character that's done that, but also in a different way, to where like Bruce, it seems like he stays kind of in that smart Hulk type of situation, He's trying to improve to get back to Bruce Banner. At the beginning, he had that prototype device thing on him, which allowed him to change back into Bruce Banner. And then you have She-Hulk, who goes in between, but at least up until kind of that retreat episode, she definitely preferred She-Hulk, she thought, to be, it's that person, as she described. You have that friend that's smarter, funnier, prettier than you, whatnot. It gets all the attention, and she can just change into that person whenever. So she's kind of leaning more towards she wants to be in that form, maybe. And then you have the Abomination, who's completely been like, that was, in the past, it's something that I thought I was doing right in the moment. But with all of the, like, gamma ration and, like, super soldier stuff, serum that he had in him, kind of drove him mad a little bit, at least in that moment, until he kind of came back down. And he's shifted to be like, he can control it, but he wants nothing to do with it.
So I will say, slight spoilers, because I will be talking about towards the end. I think we referenced it already, but during that second to last episode, the retreat, where she's after Emil Blancy's trial and he is proven that, like, you're able to let go. Which, by the way, I understand from his point of view he's fine, but also, if you go back and watch The Incredible Hulk, he killed multiple people. Like, he rampaged New York. He actually, or I think was it New York or was it DC? That doesn't matter. There's literally a shot of him just, like, sweeping his arm and taking out, like, 5 or 10 people. They were like, yeah, we'll give this guy parole after 15. Anyway, I'm not going to judge the legal system in a comic show. Anyway, when they're at, specifically about the retreat episode, after she finally sees him again and sees what he's doing with his time, that's like, I'm trying to help other people, like I've helped be, with, hey, let's not just be what the world tells us to be. We don't have to be villains. During that entire scene, I was just waiting for, like, them to, when she untransformed, like, is this where they're going to, like, stick her in the back and, like, betray her or, like, do some... I was like...
Do something terrible.
Yeah, do something terrible. There's going to be a point in this where it's going to be like, pull the rug under us and be like, no, they were villains the entire time. But that doesn't seem... And obviously the finale is not out, so maybe we are completely wrong. I'd be a little disappointed if I was wrong about this. But...
I'd be very disappointed in the character.
Yeah, because that's not what he does. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. He actually is reformed, which is kind of rare to see, like a villain actually reform and be better. And the big twist is, no, it was, the nice guy boyfriend from the wedding. That's who the actual, the dude that betrayed her was. And so... I don't know, I kind of like the fact that, at least in I think that the traditional easy path would be, we help him, reform him, and then, he was a bad guy the entire time. I feel like that's the easy way to go, but that's not what they're doing. They're like, no, we want to take Abomination, who, in the comics, is a pretty boring character. Like, essentially, he's just Hulk with scales. And his only goal is
big ears.
Yeah, and big ears. Like, he's just Lizard Hulk, and his whole thing is just like, I want to be like the Hulk, but better. And honestly, his motivation could just be what Red Hulk is. Like, it's just two dudes that just hate the Hulk, so they become Hulks themselves. And it's
original.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it just becomes like, these characters aren't, and we haven't seen Red Hulk yet, hopefully in the future, because he's very prominent in the Thunderbolt show, or maybe the finale of this, we don't know. But I like that they're like, okay, let's take this relatively boring character from the comics, let's change him up a little bit, let's do something different. And that's what I like about the MCU in general. They take, the source material from the comics, but they will tweak it to either make sense or just 9 times out of 10, oh, maybe that's a bit of a good statement, but a lot of the times, make it better. Because comics are stupid. I'm sorry to all you comic fans out there. The Civil War comic is actually terrible. It's not a good comic. The characters don't make sense. I don't like
You're
it.
gonna get hate for that probably.
Oh, I
but-
go ahead. Dylan, I know you're listening to this. Civil War is not a good comic. Characters go to way too far of extremes and essentially kill each other for morals that don't make sense. Why is, because in the comics, why is Captain America going against the government when he's lived his entire life, supporting the government? Be like, yeah, and then Iron Man, who's lived his entire life being a rebel, being the lone gun, he's like, no, I'm all for it. In MCU, they make it make sense. They change up their perspective, so now their ideals actually do clash, and you do see why they would go to fisticuffs. Not to the extent in Civil War. In Civil War, they're literally killing each other for motivations that really don't feel like they match the character. This is a very different tangent, but I do want to point that out, and I'm okay with saying this. I don't like the Civil War comic. But Civil War in the MCU is one of my favorite movies from the MCU. And I will stand by that statement. But all that aside, what I'm getting to is the MCU does a good thing where they change up characters for the better. And I'm glad they did this with Abomination. I'm hoping they do that with Ironheart when she comes out and she'll be revealed in Wakanda Forever. Because that is not a good character in the comics either. That one I won't get hate for. A lot of people agree with me on that, so I'm hoping they'll do her better in that. That's a long tangent down, so I'll pass it off just so I can take a breather. Rady, how do you feel about, I guess that episode, The Retreat? Because that feels like the big that's the character-driven episode. There's not really a fight. We're introduced to, these kind of little villain rogues, and it's a big turning point for Jen.
I think overall, it was probably one of my favorite episodes. Well, see, would it be my favorite? I'm looking back through the episode list.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is my favorite.
Yeah.
Which, some people, Marvel shows kind of have this formula of having some of the better episodes be towards the end.
Yeah.
I say Marvel shows. A lot of, I guess, shows will have that because you have to first establish a character and whatnot.
I know what you mean, though. Marvel definitely has a pattern, especially with TV shows, of it starts really high, and then it drops down, and it's always the 2 episodes, and it's the exact same with this. It's the 2 episodes before the finale that are the best in the show, and the finale's okay. But it's the 2 episodes before the finale where something big happens. This is the peak of the climax. That's where it's great. But it's a high start, drops down, super high, second to last episode, and the last episode's okay. It's a very Falcon Winter Soldier had this. WandaVision had this. Loki, kind of. I really like the last episode of Loki, so but. It's definitely a formula.
It's the exception.
Yeah. But it's definitely a formula that they have. And this one does kind of follow it. So I see what you're talking about.
At least they acknowledge it. Literally, at the end of last episode, the last episode before the finale, they're like, oh, that means, the twist is coming.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are ready for it next week.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it happens pretty much at the end of the episode. So yeah, it is that is another downside I will say of it. I'll admit to. It is a bit formulaic in the sense of that, where it's
Well, some people have said Marvel in general has just become formulaic, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't put all that pressure necessarily on just She-Hulk.
That is a fair point. And we did discuss a little bit of that in a previous episode. Is Marvel getting worse? A lot of people would say this is the worst.
The worst, which I don't agree with.
Yeah.
There's still Thor Dark World, so
Yeah.
just remember that, people.
Fair. Thor the Dark Thor. I guess compared to other, Marvel shows, and just for quick list, it's, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Hawkeye, Loki. I don't know if I should count What If because that's more of an anime thing.
It's still a show.
Sure, yeah, we can count it. Would you consider this like one of the worst ones, or do you think it's higher than people are giving it credit for?
Um, let's see. So we had WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and Hawkeye, Moon Knight as well,
Oh yeah, Moon Knight's the
Miss
one.
Marvel.
Yeah,
Okay, so I've not watched Miss Marvel yet. I'm watching
Yeah.
that probably after She-Hulk.
a little backwards, but we wanted to get in time for this episode.
Yeah.
I will also say, and again, I'll reemphasize, Miss Marvel is a lot better than people. Well, people don't get credit for anything. A lot of people didn't watch it, but it actually is good. I wasn't expecting to like it, but check out Miss Marvel. It's not. It's
As
not what
much-
you think it is at first. It has
As much as I like the character, and I was someone who wanted either a standalone movie, because this was before we had kind of the Disney Plus era, is I wanted a standalone movie, or maybe not even standalone, just a duo movie between like Hawkeye and Black Widow. And then we got a Hawkeye show, and I think of those ones, of the ones I just listed, it is the worst, doing air quotes.
Yeah.
Just because I guess it's not. Maybe it's not like super memorable. I don't know. It's not
Yeah.
like Moon Knight. I've really enjoyed a lot,
Yeah.
and I'd say that's probably my favorite of the shows.
Moon
I
Knight
don't know.
also.
Loki I enjoyed a lot too.
Yeah. Moon Knight gets
But-
a little extra credit in my book for the sole reason that Moon Knight you could show that to a non-Marvel fan, and Moon Knight does stand alone. Like, you don't have to know or watch anything or know this. It's a brand new character, very contained story, and very well acted. So Moon Knight, I don't know, that one's not my favorite either, but it's the one I don't think of as Marvel because it doesn't have a connection to anything else, but that kind of is to its benefit.
Yeah. So I guess Hawkeye is quote unquote the worst. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, I'm enjoying She-Hulk. It's different than Hawkeye because Hawkeye still, I would say, has decent action, for sure.
Yeah.
But like She-Hulk is a different show. It's more, as literally pitched in the first episode, lawyer show with comedy elements and superhero elements.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It definitely knows what it is, and it's not afraid to do that. I always feel bad for Hawkeye because I feel like it's just kind of it's the one everyone goes to for the worst. I enjoyed it, but
which
I
stinks because like I like Hawkeye. And
Yeah,
I really
I-
wanted some sort of standalone or like duo movie
yeah. I've
with
said,
him and Black Widow, and then people will often say like Black Widow is one of the worst like Marvel movies.
yeah. It would have been better with Hawkeye in it. Why wasn't Hawkeye? Actually, why wasn't Hawkeye in? Oh wait, no, he was in prison at that point because that's after. Never mind. I just thought of the timeline. But yeah, I've said this before and I'll say this again. Hawkeye would have been better if it was just like a straight to Disney Plus Christmas movie, not a show, a movie. Because honestly, Hawkeye, if you look at it, only takes place through was it like 2 days or something, like really quick. So honestly, you can take Hawkeye, cut out some not as important plot device because there are we don't remember them, but I remember when we talked about Hawkeye, there were a lot of moments where I'm like, yeah, I could do less of Jack. And honestly, I liked Kingpin showing up, but he didn't really have anything to do with the show.
Yeah, he felt completely out of nowhere.
That one
Just to be
felt
hey, look,
just
it's
like
Kingpin.
here's a cameo. We're just gonna use him as the final boss. So I think Hawkeye would have been better if you just take that show, chop it up a little bit, just kind of restructure it, and then make it hour and a half, 2 hour long. And you could even call it like Hawkeye the Christmas movie or something, and just I think it would have done a lot better with that. It would have kind of allowed it to stand more on its feet. Because how it is now, it's comparing with a lot of these other shows, and it just kind of fall flat. But yeah, that is Hawkeye, not She-Hulk. so I won't bash on it too hard. So now that we've kind of talked a lot about like the general show, I guess kind of do you have any hopes for this episode that hasn't come out yet, this season finale, or if that's a bit too thing, what are your thoughts for, what are they gonna do with She-Hulk in the future? Standalone movie, put her in the Avengers, or just kind of keep her as a TV show and keep her as a smaller character.
I think they'll probably keep her as a smaller character for now, at least. I think I kind of want there to be a second I would like a second She-Hulk season.
Yeah.
Just because, I think they can do a lot of fun things with different court cases and whatnot. So I would like there to be a second season so far. In regards to the final episode, I'm not sure exactly what twist they're going to put on it. They hint that there's a twist at the end. They're definitely not going to do it this way, because with being She-Hulk such a smaller character and being a show that I feel like honestly not a lot of people are going to watch.
Yeah.
I remember the friend comes out and they're like, yeah, we got to get ready for the gala and whatnot, and she comes out with the makeup brushes in between her fingers, like Wolverine claws.
Yeah.
There's no way they're gonna introduce X-Men in any way.
No.
Because if they're doing that, it's in movies and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly what the twist will be. The only thing I can think of is yes, it is Blonsky or something, but maybe that's just because I'm not paying enough attention and there's something way more obvious and I'm just missing it.
My kind of theory, and also I will say, the twist might have just been that the boyfriend I guess not boyfriend, the guy that she was dating was actually just a villain. That might have been the big
he's
twist.
definitely part of that hate group.
Yeah.
Which one thing I did enjoy, I think it was in episode 2, literally, it goes through and it shows all these comments of why does everything have to be female? Another female superhero? Yeah. And I'm just at least Marvel / Disney knows. They're
oh no,
they're oh, this is just affirmative action, and I'm just yeah, there's definitely people that are gonna comment that.
I don't
and
remember.
then I guess having this bad, big bad group here at the end that interrupts her gala, being pretty much a group of
it's Twitter
internet trolls.
She's fighting Twitter.
She's fighting Twitter, quite literally. And they realized it when they were making this show. They're we're gonna have to fight Twitter.
Yeah.
Although this is obviously a very extreme version of Twitter with people having death threats and then actually having an organization
and actually doing anything about their comments.
On it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In comparison to just saying shit online.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what this last twist is going to be.
Yeah. So I will say 2 things. I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot to. What's funny about that part, I can't remember the exact one, but someone pointed out a couple of those comments are real comments that they've gotten about those comments were talking about Captain Marvel, or I think some are even for Black Widow, but they actually took some of their hate mail that they got and reworded it to point She-Hulk, and then lo and behold, thank God the world never changes. A lot of those comments, people even were oh, why is there another why is everything gotta be a she version? And then that episode comes out and it's well, don't you look like an idiot? They literally are parroting you, Twitter. She-Hulk got the same amount of hate in real life as she did in the show. And it's just, I don't know. There's some, I don't know if that's clever or very predictable on just pop culture people, but I kind of like the fact that they anticipated the hate, so they write to the hate.
Yeah, I found it very funny.
That was kind of
I went through it goes through quite quickly.
Yeah.
But I went through and I'd pause and kind of and try to read them and whatnot. And I found it quite funny.
Yeah, that's very real world. It's a very us, like, not me and you, but just like not comic book response.
Neckbeards.
Yeah, neckbeards. Um,
The stereotypical neckbeards.
yeah, exactly.
So,
But as for like the finale, the only thing that I can, and I've tried to not make too many wild predictions because I learned my lesson from WandaVision. I was hype on Wanda. I was predicting X-Men. I was predicting Fantastic Four was going to show up. Like that's. I'm not doing that here. The one thing I will say is, at a certain point, she says, "What am I going to turn red?" And then, because of the whole thing with, we're trying to get her blood, we're trying to get a sample of like her DNA from one episode. So my one thing is like, this might be how they introduce or lead into a Red Hulk.
interesting.
So, and a little bit of background on Red Hulk. Red Hulk in the comic is General Ross. And for those who don't know, remember the old dude with like the mustache from the first Incredible Hulk that tries to kill the Hulk? He is Bruce Banner and like his girlfriend's dad. So it's that guy, and he's just been driven to the point of madness in the sense of like, I hate the Hulk so much, I'll do anything to kill him, just whatever. I'll even take the serum myself. And so he puts himself through experimentation and becomes the Red Hulk. And when he's first introduced in the comics, you don't know who it is because when he transforms, he doesn't keep the mustache or the
It
or
retreats
the hair.
into his face.
Yeah, it's really weird thinking about it. Anyway, so that's the only thing that I can see possibly like would be a big twist, and that would actually bring forth a villain that could actually match her physically. It'd be a bit. I feel like it would be a bit Kingpin, where it's like, and here's the surprise villain all along, but at the same time, it's like it does a little bit make sense because
Because they are trying to like get her blood, and in the first episode, he's like, Bruce is even like, yeah, if your blood gets out there, it could be super dangerous.
Yeah. So, I think it'd be okay.
And you have like that one group of people that try and jump her and like
Yeah.
try and pierce her skin to get a sample.
Yeah.
So
And there hasn't really been much from that, and it's clear like they are the same. It's the same group that like is hating on Shield, except for that one dude apparently.
Yeah.
Reformed. So it'll be. I think it'd be okay if the big finale is Red Hulk. There aren't actually too many Hulk villains that could do. The only other one that I would, just to make a bold prediction, is there's a character called the Leader, and if he was back, and I don't know if they confirmed that it is going to be the same dude, because I think they did say that he'll be brought back maybe for a different project. For those who don't remember, in The Incredible Hulk, there's a scene where this nerdy dude is like giving Emil Blonsky the same kind of super serum, like Hulk juice, for lack of a better term, to Emil Blonsky. And this dude, at one point, when he's turning into Abomination, he knocks over the scientist, and you can see his head swelling and some of like the, Hulk juice spraying into his head. That character, like, in the comics, is called the Leader. He's this dude with a big head, and the idea is, like, he's one of the smartest people in the world, so he thinks of ways to outsmart the Hulk, which really isn't that hard now that you think about it, because Hulk is an idiot. Well, not this version of Hulk, but regular
Smart Hulk.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. It's, like, possibly it could lead to, like, the Leader situation, and if they would bring back that guy, which, if they were going to do that, hey, they've already brought back one character from the Incredible Hulk. Why not bring another actor? As long as it's not Edward Norton, because apparently that guy is terrible to work with.
I don't know. I remember like hearing about that, and there was an interview like 2019 to where he was saying like, yeah, I mean, it happened, but it's not like I enjoyed working with Kevin Feige, but I don't know.
Maybe
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah,
so.
it has been a long time. So maybe temperatures have cooled off, or people realize like, this wasn't as big deal or followed as it was. I do much prefer Mark Ruffalo, though. I'm glad he's Hulk now. But
They
speaking
make a
of,
little reference to that where
yeah, I was a completely different person
Jim
back in
calls,
that day.
yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
completely different person back then, literally.
That was cute. Okay, so the last thing that I will bring up, and this is more about regular Hulk. And, I keep saying, for those who don't know, they're, back when Marvel was bankrupt, this is before the MCU, before any of that, they sold the rights to certain characters. This is the reason Spider-Man took so long to get into the MCU. This is the reason why we don't have X-Men in our Marvel universe. And one of the big ones is Hulk. Hulk is still owned by Fox, aka Universal, which is the reason we haven't gotten a solo Hulk movie since, way back when that was made by Universal. And it's also the reason that Hulk cannot appear in his own solo movies, but he can appear in other people's properties. So he's shown up in Avengers movie, he's shown up in Thor, he's shown up in this. And this kind of leads to a lot of his character development being either off screen or as like a side thing to the main mission. Because he can't get his own movie. It's not. Now, that was in the past. That deal and that contract ends next year.
Next year.
So there is potential for Hulk to finally get his own spin-off movie. They can do World War Hulk proper, which I think that might be what they're referencing because he's going off into space. He can finally do his own movie, not a side thing. He can, do it himself. They can bring in Red Hulk. They can do that thing. So my question for you, Randy, is what are your thoughts on a solo Hulk movie? Did you enjoy seeing him just kind of pop up in other people's? Are you excited for him to finally get his own thing? And if so, is there a story that you want told with this? Does that make sense?
So I'm not that familiar with Hulk, other than what's been shown in the MCU. So, and I know we had a not great movie already with Hulk, but now I think Marvel has had more experience and they've already kind of developed the character, while yes, some of it being off screen, but they can only do so much when they can't make a solo movie with him. I think it could be interesting to have him have his own movie, and hopefully it goes well. I could see what you're saying about it being Red Hulk, that yes, this show kind of leads up to this is how they get kind of like the Hulk DNA through the She-Hulk show. And then Hulk gets his own movie that starts to get made, and then perhaps She-Hulk and Hulk are both, or Ken and Bruce Banner both are in that movie, and kind of work together to try and down Hulk or something like that. I think that could work well.
Yeah, I will say my kind of hopes for it, and I don't think this is what they're gonna do, but it's wild speculation. I really hope that what they do for him is kind of go back and fill in the blanks for Hulk's character. Because what we see in, at least from Endgame to, Infinity War to Endgame, where he goes from, I can't turn into the Hulk anymore, he won't come out, to, oh, we're cool now, we're the same person, I'm smart, I'm Professor Hulk. There is... How did we get from point A to point B? It's kind of played as a joke, but I think I feel like there's a movie there, in that 5-year gap where the world was, bleeped out of existence, and this dude that's lived with this rage monster inside of his entire life finally comes to terms with it. I feel like that's a really big moment for this character, but because of the way this deal is, and because he can't get his own movie, we don't see that. We don't really get the sense that he's like this. There's another point which they could do. Towards the end of Ragnarok, at one point he tells, Thor, I've been the Hulk for, I skipped another one. him just being I really want them to be a World War
Hulk
Hulk.
as the Hulk for like 2 years.
Yeah, him as the Hulk for
Wasn't it?
2 years and essentially doing what World War Hulk is. I keep referencing that. It's Hulk gets sent out to space because he's deemed too dangerous to be on Earth. And so the Hulk personality and Bruce Banner's personality kind of make a deal. Hey, we're going to work together. Like, I will help you make decisions, but we're going to stay in Hulk's body. Like, they make that conscious decision because they're out in the, planet. And then it's this whole story about Hulk essentially conquering this world and becoming its king. And it's a badass story. It's one of the best Hulk stories there is. Definitely look it up. I wouldn't do it justice trying to recount it now. But I feel like that could be a really thing that they should do in the future. But the other one I was referencing is, he's Hulk for 2 years, and then towards the end of Ragnarok, he tells Thor, "Hey, I've been Hulk for this long. I finally made it down. I finally calmed down. I'm worried if I turn into Hulk one more time, I'm gonna be stuck like that forever." And he does it anyway, just because he has to fight. And so, but the next time we see him, he's able to. Well, actually, no. I just remember the next time we see him, he gets beat up by Thanos and kind of punched out of it. So I guess that theory didn't work. Okay, I just remember the timeline again, but still, there's a lot of growth for this character, and there's a lot of blank spots in his journey that I feel like if they wanted to go back and make something really good from it, they have a lot of opportunity from. So it'll be interesting to see where they bring Hulk into, but that is Hulk, not She-Hulk, different characters, and we're kind of running this a bit longer. So, Randy, any closing thoughts about She-Hulk overall? Is it?
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it is a better, and maybe this has been a trend with Marvel shows in general. It is better to have binged it. I could see how week to week some people could get annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Maybe they're just impatient. But anyway, I'm excited for this final episode to see what, quote unquote, the twist is, to see if this does kind of lead into Red Hulk. I like that theory that you were kind of bringing up about that. So overall, I think it's a good show. People need to stop being haters on it, which, I just kind of realized they kind of have something similar to that when they have Titania, who's just like, this isn't over, hater, or whatnot. Just like she's referring to people as haters. And I could just whatever, whether you like that or not. I just find it ridiculous and just it's kind of campy, which is fine.
Yeah.
But people should give it a chance. I think it's a fun show, so just give it a chance. It's not that much of a time commitment, really, because each episode's only 30 minutes. And the last episode's about to come out, so you can binge it all literally in 2 days.
Yeah.
And that's not even, still while, I'm working a full-time schedule, I binged it in 2 days. So.
I think I definitely agree. Even though I'm sure this podcast will have some kind of clickbaity title, I don't think it's actually, the worst Marvel show, or I don't think it deserves all the hate it is getting. I don't think I enjoy it as much as Randy. It's fine. It has its faults, but especially looking at what a lot of people are criticizing this for, I think they're being overly harsh. I think people are kind of just being, for lack of a better term, neckbeards, as Randy keeps saying. And they're really hating on the show just because they wanted it to be something else, and they're really wanting for this kind of very grounded, serious, gritty, something like that from Marvel, which
is not what this show is going to be.
That's not. I'll say this last thing. If you want a show like that, if you want a gritty, down to earth type of lawyer show with a superhero involved, watch Netflix's Daredevil, because that's a lawyer show. The court cases are super intense and pretty long out. It is a much longer show, I will say, but it is darker. It is amazing action scenes, and it's great character. and some of the best acting ever. I didn't even talk about Punisher in that show, that guy's amazing. I hope he comes back. I'm done. I'm done with Daredevil. She-Hulk's not that bad. I agree with Randy. Give it a shot. But that is everything for She-Hulk. Now that we are at the end of the podcast, we will do everyone's favorite segment, our Fresh Picks of the Week. We only got 2 because there's only 2 of us. But Randy, would you like to start us off? What is your Fresh Pick of the Week?
All right, so I just watched this yesterday. It came out, the initial release was September 28th, 2022. It was Hellraiser.
Oh.
It's a 2022 horror thriller, rated R. You can watch it over on Hulu now with a subscription to that. You can also watch it, I believe, on lowered, or I don't know if that is the lowest tier. But anyway, you can watch it when it has ads, and that's how we watched it. And the ads weren't super in the way of it. Overall, I thought it was fine. It's not particularly my genre. Will wanted to watch it. He likes his horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
I personally thought it had, I think it kind of, I discovered I'm not a fan of, like, gore horror, I guess.
Yeah.
And this movie definitely has that. Although I was intrigued to see where it went. Basically, the overall premise is you have this box puzzle type of situation, and pretty much as you go through each step, the person that's solving it, it pushes out like a little knife out of the box, and it can either hit the person who's solving it, or if you happen to have your hand in the right spot, it doesn't hit you, and then you have to pretty much mark someone for sacrifice to move on to the next stage of the puzzle. So I was intrigued to see where this puzzle leads to, what's the final setup, and things of that nature. And I won't spoil anything else from it, but like I said, it's over on Hulu now. If you're fine with some gore, you can go ahead and watch it. Give it a shot.
So, Randy, I do have to ask, have you ever seen the original Hellraiser?
I've not.
Okay.
I've only seen this one.
Okay. That's interesting. We might have to I might have to ask you about it, because that might be an interesting comparison, because I've only seen the original one, and that one also is bloody, but it has a lot of themes of sexuality and pleasure versus pain, and that type. And there also is the box, which is
What's in the box?
yeah.
That's a
I could do a whole
different movie.
I would love to do a whole like horror explanation on what the box represents versus. In a lot of horror movies, most killers have a stabbing or, for lack of a better term, phallic type weapon, versus this one, a box, which is representative of a different genitalia. So that's the last thing I'll say about that. That's a whole video essay that I would love to do, and I've always been fascinated by that. But I do need to see that because I like the original Hellraiser for how like unique and different it was. So thank you for that. And my fresh pick is also, given it's spooky season, I also have a horror movie. It is 2002's Pearl, which is a prequel show to X. And X is a horror movie that I think flew under the radar a little bit. And I really think people should both watch X and then watch Pearl. Because X has probably the most raunchy and like not appropriate around kids premise that I've ever heard. It is a slasher that is set when kids are trying to film a porno. And that sounds like, oh, this is gonna, you're all thinking of the movie. It's not gonna have very, good writing. It's just gonna be there for the gore and to show off, a woman's breast. Except, while that is there in X, that is not what this movie is about. X has some of like the best written characters I've ever seen in a movie. It deals with sexuality and sexual identity very well and asks like pretty good questions, and is also some of the best acted, horror I've ever seen. And Pearl is no different. Pearl is more of a character movie than a horror movie about the killer from the first movie. it shows her backstory and what she was like younger, and it's super interesting. The main actress does an amazing job. Mia Goth is her name. At the end of the movie, she has it's about like a 6 or 7 minute long just monologue, and you are entranced the entire time because it's super interesting, and it is incredibly well acted. Highly recommend Pearl. You also could see it before X because it's a prequel, but I think in my opinion, I think X is better. But yeah, I love Pearl. I love its setting. I love that it starts out and you would never know it's a horror movie. It starts out in the same style and the same credits as like how Wizard of Oz starts. It's that whimsical movie, like whimsical like music, and then it shows like the title and that like fancy fa blah, blah, and then after the title she like kills an animal or like something like it just like, oh, this is not what you think it is. And I could go in a whole deep dive about that as well on what that represents, but I'd be here for another hour. So yes, go see Pearl. It's out in theaters right now, and if you can't make it to theaters, then go watch X. I am not sure where that is, but you can rent it or look it up. Both are really good horror movies, and what a great time to be watching horror during spooky season. So that is everything from me and Randy. I want to thank Randy for being on with me today.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And I want to thank every one of you guys for watching and supporting us. Thank you again. Bye.